morning. The Maseches Tamid, beginning the last parak of the Maseches, parak Zayin. For all intent and purposes, as I mentioned yesterday, the Iker Avoda of the Tamid Shel Shachar has been completed. We had the 4 lotteries. Lottery 1 for Trumas Hadeshen, and the Kohen who won that lottery did other things as well. He set up the logs of the Maracha. He lit the Maracha. He threw the additional 2 pieces of wood, Shnei Gezirei Eitzim, onto the Maracha Gedola. The second lottery occurred, 13 winners. The first winner was the one who would shech the korban tamid. To his right would be the one who would be zorek the dam. To his right would be the one who would clean the mizbeach haktores and the heichel. The one to his right would clean the menorah in 2 phases, 5 westernmost sticks, pause, shritas hakorban, zrikas hadam, and then clean the remaining 2 eastern sticks. The second stick is the Ner Marobi. We learned about that. In the meantime, the parts of the animal, which were given to 6 Kohanim, and then there was a 7th Kohen who carried the flour offering that's been mixed with oil, and the next Kohen, the 8th Kohen, who would carry the soles, the chavitin. He carried the 6 of the 10 chalos, 6 of the 12 chalos of the Kohen Gadol. There was a Kohen that carried the oil. All these things were on the ram, and they were left there. The Kohanim have already davened. They were bridge davening and said Kriya Shema in the Lishkas Hagazis. The Kohen winner number 3 already went in and took out his bowl of the ash from the Mizbeach HaKtores. He did his shtachavaya and he left. The winner number 4 of lottery 2 went back in and cleaned the last 2 eastern sticks of the menorah, depending, sometimes 1, sometimes 2, as we learned yesterday, depending if the Ner Marobi was lit. He took out his kuz with the wick and the oil from yesterday in it, did his shtachavaya, left the heichel. These 2 Kohanim, winner 3 of lottery 2, winner 4 of lottery 2, the cleaner of the mizbeach, the cleaner of the menorah, met at the eastern side of the ramp. Together poured the teni and the kuz on the base hadeshin. 1 miracle that got absorbed into the ground. 3 Kohanim then went into the ulam. 1 Kohen is winner number 3. He's going to burn the ketores. 1 Kohen is the Kohen who stood to his right during the 3rd lottery, and he's going to bring the coals from the mizbeach, the outside mizbeach, from the Maroch of Ketores, takes it off the Mizbeach in a silver pan, goes down the ramp, transfers the coals from the silver pan to a gold pan, and he's going to go into the Heichel with winner number 3, who has the pan. In the pan, which we call the kaf, in the pan there's the buzzer, the cup. In the cup is the Ketores with a cap on it, and on the whole thing there's sort of a handkerchief. So we have a Kohen winner of lottery 3. The one who stood next to him is coming with him with the gold pan of coals. And then there's a 3rd Kohen, the winner of lottery 3 would pick a relative or a friend to go with them, and he's going to help him with the ketores. They went in. Winner, the person with the coals, would put the coals on top of the mizbeach, take the bottom of the gold pan and flatten them across the surface of the mizbeach. Winner, actual winner of lottery 3, would place the pan with the buzzer on the floor, take out the buzzer, give it to his friend who he invited to come with him. His friend would pour the ketores into winner lottery 3's palms, and the person who brought the coals in would then do his ishtachavaya. He's done. When he left, he would take that gold fire pan along with the what looked like a fry pan that had the cup in it with the ketores, and he left. The winner of lottery 3 is now left by himself in the Heichel. No one's allowed to be in the Heichel when he brings the Ketores. Nobody can be in the Ulam. Nobody can be between Ulam and Mizbeach. Nobody can be between the Keves and the Mizbeach. And the Mamuna, the supervisor, gave out a yell, Hakter. Hakter means you can now put the incense on the coals because we made sure no one is in the prohibited areas. At that point, he then begins the process of spreading, according to the Rambam, the ketores from his palms across the fire, across the coals on top of the mizbeach. And he was taught how to do that. You start away from your body, you start putting ketores on the western side of the mizbeach and bring your hands forward and spread the ketores across the top of the mizbeach from west to east, from away from your body towards your body, because if you start putting the ketores near your body, the smoke and the heat will rise, and then you'll end up putting your hands through the smoke and chas v'shalom burning your hands. So this is what he was taught. The avodas haketoras has now been done, and therefore for all, and the Kohen, he's now done, winner of lottery 3, Ishtach Avoya, and he leaves. The avoda, for all intent and purposes, the korban tamid shel shachar is done. There are still the animal parts and the flour offering, and the 6 of the 12 chalas of the Kohen, and the wine to be poured on the mizbeach, and the Leviim to sing shir while the wine is being poured on the mizbeach. That's yet to be done. We'll see some of that today. But the ikar avoda of the korban tamid shel shachar has been done, which is a chiddush, because most of us think that the avoda doesn't finish until the animal is consumed in the fire on the mizbeach. And right now the animal is on the lower half of the ram. His parts are on the lower half of the ram, along with the flour offering and the 6 chalas of the Kohen and the wine. And we're accustomed to thinking that it's not over until those things are brought to the top of the mizbeach. Yes, to officially end the avoda, that would be done, but quote unquote, it is not ma'akev the korban. Once the blood has been splashed, the korban is shechted, the blood is splashed on his back, and the ketores is brought, the ikar avoda has been done. Now the Perek Zayin, we're going to move on to what's done after the ketores was offered on the inner mizbeach. The next thing that we know about, although it's not directly in the order, appears to be not directly in the order of our Mishnah, is that the parts of the animal, the 9 things that are on the ram, they would be brought up to the top of the mizbeach for consumption. After the ketores, these things would be brought up. Now, who brought them up? Remember, we learned that this is a machlokes, who brought these 9 things up to the mizbeach for consumption. Our sheet, the way we paskin, is that was the 4th lottery. Lottery 1, Trumas Hadeshin. Lottery 2, 13 winners. Lottery 3, new person who's never done the ketores. Lottery 4, who will now bring the things on the ramp up to the mizbeach for consumption. Rashi learns that that was 1 winner. Although 9 different kohanim brought these things to the ramp, 1 Kohen who won lottery 4 would bring them all to be consumed on the mizbeach. The Ritva Shita is that it wouldn't be 1 Kohen, it would be a whole new set of Kohanim that would bring these things up to the mizbeach. And that's at any rate lottery 4, who's going to bring the items that are on the ramp up to the mizbeach. That's lottery 4, and that's how we paskin. We mentioned that Beleza ben Yaakov holds that the lottery 4 has nothing to do with the items on the ramp, because according to Rebbe Lezer ben Yaakov, the same 6 or 9 Kohanim who brought the items to the ramp and left them there, after the ketores is brought, those same 6, 9 Kohanim come and bring it and finish their mitzvah. They bring it to the top of the mizbeach. And Rebbe Lezer ben Yaakov says that lottery 4 was for the person who would bring the coals into the heichal to burn the ketores. We don't paskin like that. We paskin the fourth lottery is who is going to bring the items up to the Mizbeach. Rashi, 1 Kohen, Ritva, 6-9 Kohanim. How do you find out? How do you determine who's going to bring the coals in to the Heichel along with lottery winner 3? There's no pies. There's no lottery for that. It's the Kohen that stood to the right of winner lottery 3. He brought the Machta in. So that's where we're up to. The Torah has been brought. The Ikar Abod has been done. Although the Mishnah is going to talk about it later, not today. We are assuming, that's the Rambam Shita, that the items that are on the ramp have been brought up to the Mizbeach, and we're almost ready to pour the wine on the Mizbeach, except we're going to do something first. But the things that need to be burnt on the Mizbeach, animal parts, the flour offering, excuse me, and the 6 of the 12 chalas of the Kohen, Minchas Havitim, have been consumed now, put in the fire on the Mizbeach, and now, because the avoda of the Korban Tamid Shel Shacha is over, so now we're going to do the following. Bisman shekohen gadol, Bisman shekohen gadol nichnas l'shtachos. This, I believe, is page 19 in your V'hasheves Avoda. Yes, 19, Perek Zayin, Mishnah Aleph. Bisman shekohen gadol nichnas l'shtachos. All the Kohanim are going to have to do a hishtachavaya now. Everyone's going to go into the Heichel. The avoda has been completed. There are a lot of Kohanim that were involved in the avoda in the morning. Some of them won lotteries. Some of them brought logs to the Mizbeach. There are a lot of Kohanim who even didn't win a lottery, who did avoda in the morning. There were a whole bunch of Kohanim that brought logs to the Mizbeach so that winner lottery 1 can set them up. All these Kohanim, at this point, because the Tamid Shel Shacha is complete, they have to go in and do a hishtachavaya. There is a little problem. The Mishnah in Halacha says that every Kohen did the hishtachavaya. If you remember, we learned in a Mishnah earlier that after the lotteries were done, anyone who hadn't won a lottery and wasn't going to do avoda was undressed and gave back his big day kahuna to the mamuna, to the supervisor. And that was it. He didn't win a pious. Well, if he didn't win a pious and he gave back his big day kahuna, he left the Beis HaMikdash, and he's not there for this hishtachavaya. So what does it mean that all Kohanim had to do the hishtachavaya? It sounds that there were Kohanim that remained dressed in their big day kahuna, although they didn't win a pious. So there are Kohanim that didn't do the avoda. There are Kohanim that didn't win a pious. They're still in their begadim, and everyone now has to do a hishtachavaya after the avoda is completed. So the Mishnah now says that the first person who does the hishtachavaya is going to be the Kohen Gadol, and he does the hishtachavaya, quote unquote, with assistance. Before we go into the actual hishtachavaya, I want to remind you of the Mishnah, Perek Hey, Mishnah Vav. In Yevahasheves Avoda, Perek Hey, Mishnah Vav is on page 18. And if you remember, it says, Higiu bein ha'ulam v'la mizbeach, winner of lottery 3, going back in time, winner of lottery 3, he has in his hand the pan, the cup is in the pan with the ketores, and he has the Kohen who was to his right, who is going to bring the gold pan with the coals in it, and he has his friend with him who is going to help him with the ketores. It says when they got between the ulam and the mizbeach, Notel es hamagrefa. They took this kind of musical instrument, the magrefa, v'zarka bein ha'ulam lamizbeach, and he threw it between the ulam and the mizbeach. And we there explain, some say they physically threw it, some say that there was some kind of wind instrument that can make 100 different sounds. There was a way to blow it where all the sounds came out. There was a tremendous amount of noise. Why did they do this right before the Ketores is about to be brought? It was an alarm clock, the Mishnah says on page 18. The purpose of throwing the magref and making this loud noise served three purposes. One, Kohen sheshomea eskola yodea she'echav hakohanim nechnasim l'shtachavos. A Kohen that heard that noise knew that the three Kohanim are about to go into the Heichal and about to do the Ketores. Well, as soon as they finish the Ketores, it's going to be Hishtachavaya time. So this was alarm. If you're anywhere here and you're a Kohen, get ready to go into the Heichal after the Ketores is brought, because chick-chock, there's going to be a Hishtachavaya. So remember about the Magrefa, and that was an alarm to all the Kohanim that as soon as the Ketores is finished, that they need to all come in and do a Hishtachavaya, and that's where we're up to in the Seder HaAvodah. Okay, so again, the Ketores has been completed. All those Kohanim are now out of the Heichal and we're ready for Hishtachavaya. But before the Hishtachavaya is done, the Gemara tells us, as I mentioned, the Gemara Yuma, the Rishonim learn out from the Gemara. Lahoyu noisim eskapeyem ad shehela mishazocha beivorim meseivorim min hakevesh lamizbeach. We're about to do Hishtachavaya. We finished the Avodah, in essence, and the Kohanim are going to get ready to Duchen. Before the Kohanim Duchen, they are going to bring, whether it's one winner, 6 winners, whatever it is, they're going to bring the items on the ramp to be consumed. And then after the items are put on the Mizbech to be consumed, the Kohanim are going to Duchen. All right, so Perek Zayin Mishnah Aleph. In Yevahashiv Esavod, if you want to see a picture of this, it's going to be on page 173, picture 230. Because of Derech Eretz, because of the laws of Derech Eretz, the Kohen Gadol would be the one. What happened here? Okay. The Kohen Gadol would be the one that would do Hishtachavaya first, but he got a private Hishtachavaya. The other Kohanim are going to all come in together after him and do the Hishtachavaya, which is picture 232 on page 173. They're all in the Heichal. The Heichal, you can see, has the menorah on the southern wall. You can see the Mizbeach on a Choshes in the middle. You can't see the Shulchan with the 12 breads on the northern wall. But the Kohanim of that morning, after the Avodah, they're going to all come in and do a Hishtachavaya. At the top of page 173, you see the Kohen. Now, they're showing you a Kohen with 3 people helping him do the Hishtachavaya. That has nothing to do because he's old and feeble. The Kohen Gadol may be very young and strong. He may be very old and strong. And first of all, it's a derech kavod. He's the Kohen Gadol, so he goes in by himself with 3 assistants. There are some shittas that hold the 3 assistants went in there with him and helped him and then left. And the Hishtachavaya he did himself privately with no one else in there. The picture would seem to indicate that they actually helped him with the Hishtachavaya and they were there during his Ishtachavaya. Let's see what the Mishnah sounds like. Bisman sheKohen Gadol nichnas l'ishtachavos. At the time the Kohen Gadol came in to do his Ishtachavaya, Shlosha ochazim bo. 3 other Kohanim hold on to him. Echad bimino. One was on his right side. Ve'echad bismolo. And one is on his left side. Yes, that's an incorrect picture. They were not there anymore. There was no pan. The pan was taken out by the winner, well, not the winner, winner number 3. He took out the cup. Winner 3 of lottery 3. When he finished the ketores, he took out the bazach. He took out the cup that had the ketores in it. And the person who brought the coals in it, he brought out the pan. And there's no machta there. These things are not there at the time of the Ishtachavaya. I'm not sure why they're in the picture. It could be the people who wrote the V'hashiv Esavoda had other shita that they were somach on. But the shita, the Rishonim that's brought down is that the bazach, the cup, was taken out by winner lottery 3, and the pan was taken out by the person who brought in the fire pan, and he also took out that fry pan that held the bazach. So there are 3 Kohanim that are assisting the Kohen Gadol. Echad is holding, one is holding his right side, ve'echad b'smola, one is holding his left side, ve'echad ba'avanim tovos. And one, from the picture, they're showing you a Kohen is standing behind him. The Kohen Gadol had Avnei Shoham on his shoulders. Avnei Shoham, Avnei Miluim, La'ephod v'lachoshen. The Kohen Gadol had an ephod. We're not going to go through the big day kahuna now, but he had an ephod which looked like, we use Rashi Shita, it looked like an apron. So it came across the lower part of his body, came up across his shoulders to the top, and on the shoulder there were 2 stones, Avnei Shoham. On each stone there was the name of 6 Shavatim. And then he had Avnei Miluim, which were on his chest, 1 stone for each of the 12 Shvatim. Whether he was helped with this 3rd Kohen who's standing behind him because of the weight of all these stones, or whether they wanted to make sure that the stones, because of their holiness, did not sit on the ground, whatever the case is. There was a Kohen, according to the picture, according to Mefarshim, the other Mefarshim, they're difficult to understand. They talk about this Kohen being in front of the Kohen Gadol. I don't understand how that works, but we're going to use the picture. Kohen to the right of the Kohen Gadol, Kohen to the left of the Kohen Gadol, Kohen behind him, who sort of has his hands. He's holding the Avnei Shoham on the shoulder. He's holding the Avnei Meluim in the Choshen. He's holding them. And as the Kohen is going to do the Ishtachavaya, he's holding them so they don't fall. The heaviness may make it difficult for the Kohen to do it. So maybe that the Avonim don't touch the floor. Whatever the case is, these are the 3 Kohanim that are assisting him. How did he get in to the Ulam Heichel? He walked in there. And now we're going to have an interesting halacha about him walking out. When the Mamuna, the supervisor, in Masechta Shkolim, Perakei, we're going to learn the names of all 15 supervisors and who did what. We're going to get to the supervisors. We know, for example, Gabini Cruz made that big. He was the Gabini of the announcement. He woke them up in the morning. And Ben Bibi, we learned about Ben Bibi. He was the one that checked that the guards of the Harabayas Beis Hamikdash were not asleep. We're going to learn about all the 15 supervisors. When the Kol or the Mamuna heard that the Kohen Gadol was finished, his Hishtachavaya, and he's going to leave the Heichel, how did he know that? Because at the bottom of the Kohen Gadol's Me'il, if you remember, there were bells. So when he walked, V'nishma koila, you were able to hear a Kohen Gadol coming because he heard the bells. So as the Mamuna would hear the bells, he knew that the Kohen Gadol was leaving the Heichel and was about to leave the Ulam. Higbia loes haparoches. We are going to learn that this paroches is the paroches of the Ulam. Remember, the Ulam had no doors. All entranceways had doors. We learned the Masechta Midas, except the Ulam. The Ulam only had a curtain. Okay, Midas diagram number 3. 12 steps to the Ulam. The Ulam has the largest entrance in the whole Beis HaMikdash. All entranceways are 10 amos wide, 20 amos high, 10 by 20. The Ulam is double the size. It is 20 amos wide, 40 amos high, but doesn't have doors. It only has a curtain. This is the entryway to the Heichel, which is the standard 10 by 20, and it has 2 doors. Each door covers half of the entryway. So the Kohen Gadol did his Ishtach Havaya. He's going to walk out backwards because you don't turn your back on the Kodesh Kodashim. He did his Ishtach Havaya. He's walking out backwards and he's getting out to the curtain. How does the Mamuna, the supervisor, know that the Kohen Gadol is about to leave the Ulam? He hears the bells. The Mamuna is going to open the curtain for the Kohen, because first of all, they're covered to open it up for him. Second of all, the Kohen is walking out backwards. So when he hears the bells, he opens the curtains. Now we need to explain something about this curtain. We learned in Maseches Midas that this curtain was a beautiful curtain, but it's basically open the whole day. It was a curtain, you see these curtains all the time, drapes. The drape goes across the top of the window, comes down the sides, and then there are like bows or ribbons that tie the curtain to the sides of the window. And that's what this curtain of the Ulam looked like. During the day, it was always open. They tied it up with rope or string so that it was always open. So why did the Mamona have to open it up for the Kohen? So we're taught by the Mefarshim that the Kohen Gadol went into the Ulam, and then, as we said, he was the only one. Even the 3 assistants left once they got him into the Heichel, or the assistants remained there and helped him with the Ishtach Havaya. Either way, he got the privilege of a private Ishtach Havaya. So he's there with no other Kohanim except maybe his 3 assistants. The Mamuna then untied the ropes on the sides of the curtains and let the curtains close so that the Kohen Gadol would be in there. No one would see his Ishtach Havaya. It was a private Ishtach Havaya between the Kohen Gadol and the Rabbanu Shalom. The curtain is now closed. The Kohen Gadol is going to walk out backwards from the Heichel, backwards from the Ulam. The bells are heard in the Ulam. And the Mamuna now knows that the Kohen Gadol is about to leave the Ulam. He now opens the curtains so the Kohen Gadol can leave. And that's what the Mishnah is explaining now. Say once the supervisor heard the feet of the Kohanim, the feet of the Kohen Gadol, he's about to leave, and he can hear it from the bells. He picked up the curtain so that he can exit. And now the Mishnah, it sounds like it's out of order, and the Mefarshim deal with this. Now the Mishnah is just giving us a rule. We finished. The Kohen Gadol has left. The Mamuna opens Baroches. He's out. He's done. Now the Mishnah is going back to a rule. Nichnes v'hishtachava v'yatza. The rule is the Kohen Gadol goes in first to do the Ishtach Havaya. V'nichnesu echav hakohanim v'ishtachavu v'yatzo. And then the rest of the Kohanim went in, did their Ishtach Havaya in the Heichel, and they left. There's a question about 2 Ishtach Havayas, and that's a complex question in Halacha. Remember, we said that the Kohen who cleaned the Mizbeach HaPnimi, after he took the teni, he did a Ishtach Havaya and left. The Kohen who cleaned the menorah in 2 phases, cleaned 5, left, cleaned 2, took out his cup, his kuz, and he did a hishtachavaya, and he left. The Kohen who brought the ketores, he afterwards did his hishtachavaya. The Kohen who brought the coals in, he did his hishtachavaya. The Kohen who was the friend or relative of winner lottery 3, who helped him by putting the ketores in his hand, he did his hishtachavaya and he left. So there are a lot of Kohanim who already have done hishtachavaya. Did they go in a second time to do just a hishtachavaya? They did their avoda, they're finished, they did their hishtachavaya already. Do they go back in with all the other Kohanim to do a hishtachavaya for the sake of just going in to do a hishtachavaya with all the Kohanim? That is a complex question. There's a machlokes whether just going into the heichal for no other purpose other than to bow to do a hishtachavaya, whether that's permitted. Or is hishtachavaya only permitted at the end of avoda? So once you end your avoda, you do a hishtachavaya, you leave. You're not permitted, according to certain shitas, just to go in to the heichal for the sole purpose of just doing a hishtachavaya. The Rambam seems to indicate that it's permitted. A Kohen wants to do a hishtachavaya, he can do it. It's an avoda. Hishtachavaya is an avoda. Other shitas hold you can, so you cannot. So there were multiple Kohanim. The cleaner of the Mizbeach HaPnimi, the cleaner of the menorah, the person who brought the coals in for the ketores, the person who burnt the ketores, the person who helped the Kohen get the ketores into his palms. They did a hishtachavaya already. Could they go back in with everybody else and do a second hishtachavaya? That would be a question between the poskim. So now, all the Kohanim have done their hishtachavaya, and now all the parts of the animal that were on the ram were put onto the Mizbeach for consumption. The flour offering was put on the Mizbeach for consumption. The 6 of the 12 chalos, the Chavite Kohen Gadol, were put on the Mizbeach for consumption. We're holding off on the wine right now and the shear of the Levium. And we're ready to duchen. Mishnah Beis. Ba'u va'amdu amalos ha'ulam. All the Kohanim went and stood on the steps of the Ulam. We want to take a look at these pictures that we're going to be looking at on page 179 and 180. On page 180, picture number 240, you see the picture of the Kohanim now ready for duchen. And where are they duchening? They're duchening on the steps of the Ulam. And here, again, I want to make sure that everybody understands, because when we talk about Kohanim, doing Birchas Kohanim, we say they have to go duchen. The word duchen means a platform. They duchen, the Birchas Kohanim is done on a high level, elevated area. Some shuls don't have steps. Some of them have, the Kohanim just go to the front of the shul, and they put a carpet underneath them for their feet, whatever reason. But the duchen, it means a high platform. You'll notice that after you enter the Shar Nicanor, and you go up the 15 steps, you 15 steps, you go through the eastern gate of the Azora, Shar Nicanor. 11 amos by 135 amos is the Ezos Yisrael. Then there's something, it's shown in your picture as Duchan. And then after that, there's a space 11 by 135 that's called the Ezras Kohanim. Between the 11 by 135 Ezras Yisrael and the 11 by 135 Ezras Kohanim, there's a Duchan. And the Duchan was machlokas what it looked like, but it's basically 3 steps, took up 2.5 amos. This is the Duchan that has nothing to do with Kohanim. It's called Duchan because it's a platform. This is where the Levium stood when the wine was being poured right here on this Mizbeach. And as the wine is being poured on the outer Mizbeach, a Mizbeach in the Azora, this is the outer large Mizbeach, 32 by 32. 9 amos high with the corners, 10 amos, and it needs a ramp to get to the top. This is the outer Mizbeach, 3 marachos, the tapuach, animals are consumed here, the coals are taken from here. This is the inner small Mizbeach. The Duchan has nothing to do with the Kohanim. It means it's a platform. The Leviim stood here watching the wine being poured on the Mizbeach, and they sang the Shir Shel Yom. This has nothing to do with Kohanim, quote unquote, duchening. Kohanim duchen, quote unquote, which really means the Kohanim say Birchas Kohanim, here on the 12 steps of the Ulam, and they're facing east. Question, everybody gets concerned about this. Yes, their backs were to the Kodesh Kadoshim, because the Jewish people and anyone that was the Azara are standing here. And you can't give someone a bracha by having your back to them. So the Kohanim could not stand on these steps, face the Kodesh Kadoshim, have their backs to the people over here, and give them a blessing with their backs to them. That's not the way you give someone a bracha. That's the way you ignore someone. So they're standing on the steps of the Ulam, backs to the west, faces to the east, and they're going to get ready to duchen. The duchening actually looks like picture 240 on page 180. The Kohanim are on the steps of the Ulam. They are facing the Mizbeach, which means they're facing east. Ba'u, Mishnah Beis, Ba'u va'amdu amarlois ha'ulam. The Kohanim came and stood on the steps of the Ulam. How did they assemble on the steps of the Ulam? So there was an order. Amdu harishonim lidrom achem hakohanim v'chamisha kelim biyodam. For the time being, I am not going to explain the word here, dorom, south. We will come back to it, bli neder. The point that the Mishnah were, the Kohanim, what is the question about Kohanim Tameim? If they're Kohanim Tameim, they can't be in the Azorah. You can't be in Azorah if you're Tamid. There are certain tumas that Tuvul Yoyim, Herav Shimshoi can be in different places, but they can't be in the Azorah. Okay. Amdur harishonim ledrom achem hakohanim v'chamisha kelim biyodam. The first 5 Kohanim that would arrive on the steps of the Ulam in preparation to duchen, you can see this now on page 179, picture 239. Now they split our 5 Kohanim into 2 groups, and that's why I don't want to discuss the word Dorum right now. It's another Vahashe Bes Havoda. It's a sheet of how to learn Dorum. I'm not sure, Mayor, what you're saying, but we can talk about it after the shir. There are 5 Kohanim that arrive at the steps to Duchan first. Those are our 5 Kohanim that have already been inside the Heichel. Who's been in the Heichel, Rabbi Isai? Well, there was the cleaner of the Mizbeach, and he was winner 3 of lottery 2. He's on the step with his tenny. Who else was in the Heichel already? Winner number 4 of lottery 2. He has his kuz, where he put the oil and the wick. And there were the 2 of them. The Kohen with the tenny, who cleaned the Mizbeach, the Kohen with the kuz, who cleaned the menorah. Who else was in the Heichel already? The Kohen who burned the Ketores, the Kohen who brought the fire pan for the Ketores, and the Kohen who assisted them. And as I mentioned earlier, someone asked a question about the picture during the Kohen Godlus Ishtachavaya. It looks like there were vessels on the floor. There were no vessels on the floor. The Kohen, the 3 Kohanim now, on this side of the picture, the first one has the fire pan in his hand. He was already in the Heichel. The second one is the Kohen who was the assistant, and he has the bozach, the little cup that originally had the Ketores in it. And the furthest Kohen is the Kohen who has that pan I'm sorry, the Kohen with the buzzer, the cup, the second Kohen is the one who actually burnt the Ketores. And the furthest most Kohen, he has the pan in his hand, which had the buzzer in it. He's the one that came in and helped the Kohen. These 5 Kohanim have already been inside the Heichal. They already did their avoda. They don't want to duchen. You don't duchen until the Ketores is brought. And additionally, you're not going to duchen until all the parts of the korban that were on the ram are brought up and put on the fire. In order to set the process up for duchening, these 5 Kohanim were the first ones to come to the steps of the Ulam with their vessels in their hand. And this was a demonstration to all the Kohanim. We 5 have done our work. We cleaned the Mizbeach, we cleaned the menorah. Remember, the menorah is not going to be lit to the afternoon, so that work is done for the morning. We cleaned the Mizbeach, we cleaned the menorah. We put the coals on the Mizbeach. We put the Ketores on the Mizbeach. Here are the vessels. We did our work, we're done. It's now time to duchen. So Mishnah says, "V'chamisha kelim biyadam." These 5 Kohanim had 5 vessels in their hands. Hateni biyad echad. The teni is in the hand of winner 3, lottery 2, the cleaner of the Mizbeach. V'hakuz biyad echad. Winner 4, lottery 2, is going to hold the kuz, which is the vessel that was used to clean the menorah. V'hamachta biyad echad. The fire pan is being held by a Kohen. V'habazach biyad echad. The Kohen who burnt the Ketores is holding that little cup that had the Ketores in it. V'kisuya biyad echad. And the Kohen who was the friend or the relative of lottery winner 3, he took out that pan that had the cup in it and has that handkerchief on it. So they're standing now, and now the rest of the Kohanim join them on the steps of the Ulam, and it looks like picture 240 on page 180. Uberchu es ha'am. Now this is a very different duchening that you've ever heard, and mamish, today we should be zoichet to hear such a duchening. The duchening inside the Beis HaMikdash is different than the duchening we're accustomed to. We're accustomed to hear Yivarecha Hashem v'yishmerecha, stop, amen. Yo'er Hashem panav elecha v'yichuneka, stop, amen. Yisa Hashem panav elecha v'yaseim lecha shalom, amen. That's not the way they duchen in the Beis HaMikdash. In the Beis HaMikdash, all 3 verses were said together. There's no amen interruption. It's Yivarecha Hashem v'yishmerecha, Hashem panav elecha v'yichuneka, Yisa Hashem panav elecha v'yaseim lecha shalom. It's only one bracha. That's the first rule the Mishnah is going to tell us. There's going to be a question, and that is a complex question in Tosfos and in other Rishonim. We learned in the Avoda of Yom Kippur that when you heard the Shem HaMeforish, you heard for us the Yud Kei Vav Kei said as a Yud Kei Vav Kei, the Jews would bow and say, Baruch Shem Kivod Machuso La'olam Va'ed. Now, okay. Obviously, when they're duchening, they put the kalim in front of them. They had to put them down. You cannot duchen with a pot in your hand held up. That's correct. So they had the pots and their kalim in their hand to show everybody they did their avoda. They would put them down, and then they would join everybody for duchening. Now, in the Beis HaMikdash, they said the bracha is straight. Yivrach Hashem v'yishmerecha, Hashem panav elecha v'yichuneka, Yisa Hashem panav elecha v'yaseim lecha shalom. No pauses. So there's no amen. And this flows with the halacha in the Gemara in Tainis Tezayin. Amen was not said in the Beis HaMikdash. Ein oinim amen b'Mikdash. In the Beis HaMikdash, the way you answered was Baruch Shem Kivod Machusay L'Olam Va'ed. Now that statement in the Gemara has all kinds of different shittas in the Rishonim. And some Rishonim say that that's true for every bracha. So, for example, after the Kohanim would finish duchening, Yivarech Hashem v'yishmerecha, Yor Hashem panav elecha v'yichunecha, Yisah Hashem panav elecha v'yaseimcha shalom. Everybody would answer who listened, Baruch Shein Kavod Machusol Olam Va'ed. No amens, no amens in between the three brachas, no amens in between the brachas, one long bracha with one Baruch Shein Kavod Machusol Olam Va'ed at the end. The problem that comes up with that is Hashem's name was uttered several times before the end. Yivarecha Hashem. They heard Hashem. Did they say Baruch Shein Kavod Machusol Olam Va'ed at that point? There's shittas that say yes. They would say Baruch Shein Kavod Machusol Olam Va'ed every time they heard Hashem's name, and they would say Baruch Shein Kavod Machusol Olam Va'ed at the end of the three brachas, no amen. So it would sound something like this according to those Rishonim. Yivarecha Hashem Baruch Shein Kavod Machusol Olam Va'ed v'yishmerecha. Yo'er Hashem Baruch Shein Kavod Machusol Olam Va'ed panav elecha v'yichunecha. Yisah Hashem Baruch Shein Kavod Machusol Olam Va'ed panav elecha v'yaseimcha shalom Baruch Shein Kavod Machusol Olam Va'ed. That's how it would sound like according to those Rishonim. Other Rishonim hold there's only one Baruch Shein Kavod Machusol Olam Va'ed, and that's the end of the three brachas. The point is that in the Beis Hamikdash, it was said as one long bracha, not three brachas. So the Mishnah says, Berchu es ha'am bracha achas. When they did the Berchus Kohanim, was only one bracha. El Sheba Medina. Medina here means outside the Beis Hamikdash. Om Mosah Sholosh brachas. Outside the Beis Hamikdash, you said it. The Kohanim said it as three separate psukim, three separate blessings. Uva Mikdash bracha echas. And in the Beis Hamikdash, it was only one bracha. But Mikdash, now we're getting a second difference, which we just mentioned. By Mikdash hayu oimres Hashem kichsava. In the Beis Hamikdash, when they duchen Yivarecha Hashem, they actually said Yud Kei Vav Kei. Yor Hashem, they said Yud Kei Vav Kei. Yisah Hashem, they said Yud Kei Vav Kei. Uva Medina bechenuyav. But outside the Beis Hamikdash, you say Aleph Daled Nun Yud. You don't say the Shem Hamaforish. This use of the Shem Hamaforish lasted 40 years into the second Beis Hamikdash, the Gemara tells us. And after Shimon HaTzadik died, we mentioned that during the 40 years of Shimon HaTzadik, there were all kinds of miracles in his merit that occurred in the Beis Hamikdash. For example, the Ner Maravi, the western stick of the menorah, which means the second one. When the menorah is going east to west, it's the second stick, because relative to the first one, it's west. We explained that yesterday. It lit 24/7. The miracle happened. Other miracles happened. These are miracles that always happen in the Beis Hamikdash. In the second Beis Hamikdash, for the first 40 years, they continued in the merit of Shimon HaTzadik. Shimon HaTzadik was nifta, and these miracles sometimes happened, sometimes didn't. But one thing they stopped is they stopped teaching Kohanim how to say the Shem HaMeforish. It's not just the Shem HaMeforish to say Yud Hey Vav Kei. That's not the way it works. Yud Hey Vav Kei has all different kinds of ways to say it, with different nakudas underneath it, different kavanas. And because of the generation, what was happening in the second Beis Hamikdash, they ceased to teach people how to say the Shem HaMeforish. And therefore, 40 years afterwards, that idea ceased of using the Shem HaMeforish during the Duchening, even in the Beis Hamikdash. By Medina, a third difference. So we have two differences between the Beis Hamikdash and outside the Beis Hamikdash so far. Beis Hamikdash, it's only one bracha with Baruch Shein Kavod Machusol Olam Va'ed. Outside the Beis Hamikdash, it's three separate brachas with an amen. Inside the Beis Hamikdash, you say the Shem HaMeforish. Outside the Beis Hamikdash, you say the kinui, sort of the nickname, Aleph Daled Nun Yud. Third difference. Ba Medina HaKohanim Nosem Es Kapeyem. In outside the Beis Hamikdash, when the Kohanim duchen, Yideyem Kineged Kisfeyem. When the Kohanim duchen outside the Beis Hamikdash, as they do today, they keep their hands at shoulder level. This is how they duchen, shoulder level. Uva Mikdash, when Kohanim duchen in the Mikdash, Al Gabe Rasheim, you can see that in picture 240 on page 180. They lifted their hands, not shoulder height, but the height above their heads. And the reason for that is when they duchen in the Beis Hamikdash, the Shechina, a level of Shechina, rested on the fingertips of the Kohanim. And therefore, because the Shechina rested there, we didn't want the Shechina resting on the fingertips of the Kohanim, the height of the shoulder, which meant that the human being, Kohen's head, was higher than the Shechina. So they lifted their hands above their heads, and the Shechina can rest on their fingertips, and the fingertips are the highest point of this human body. It's higher than the head. Chutz lemikdash, where this doesn't occur on that level, the Kohanim duchen with their hands at shoulder level. Chutz, this Tana holds, the Tanakama holds, this rule has an exception. Mikayin Gadol she'ein magbia es yadav l'mayla min hatzitz. You can see that in page 180, picture 241. The Kohen Gadol, when he duchen, he did not lift his hands above his head, because the point of lifting your hands above your head was so that the Shechina, covered the Shechina should be higher than your head. In the case of the Kohen Gadol had a tzitz across his forehead. The tzitz had Yud Kei Vav Kei engraved on it, and therefore the Kohen Gadol can't lift his hands above his head, because then he's lifting his hands above Yud Kei Vav Kei. So the Kohen Gadol, even in the Beis Hamikdash, would have his hands out, shoulder height. And that's the Tanakama Shita. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Rabbi Yehuda says, Af Kohen Gadol Magbiya es yodav l'mayla min hatzitz. The Kohen Gadol also can lift his hands higher than the tzitz, and he brings a raya from a pasuk. Shenema, the pasuk says, by Aaron, after Aaron came out on the Shmini Lemiluim, on the first day where he acted as the Kohen Gadol, the 8th day of the Miluim, Vayisa Aaron es yodav el ha'am. Aaron lifted up his hands, el ha'am, towards the people, which makes it sound like he's lifting his hands towards the people, so his hands are above his head, and he blessed them, he duchen. So that's how Rabbi Yehuda learns the pasuk, and therefore Rabbi Yehuda says that in the Beis Hamikdash, all Kohanim lifted their hands above their heads. Outside the Beis Hamikdash, hands are only at shoulder height. The Tanakama, our first Tana, holds that in the Beis Hamikdash, everyone is shoulder height, except, Tanakama holds that in the Beis Hamikdash, everyone is shoulder height, including the Kohen Gadol, because he couldn't lift his hands higher than the tzitz. Certainly outside the Beis Hamikdash, like Bisman Hazeh, Shivana B'Mev Yemenu, everybody's hands are at shoulder height. The Rabbi Yehuda holds that during the time of the Beis Hamikdash, everyone was shoulder height. The Kohen Gadol was allowed to be above his, let's go back. In the Beis Hamikdash, all Kohanim, except for the Kohen Gadol, Tanakama, first sheet in the Mishnah. First sheet in the Mishnah, in the Beis Hamikdash, all Kohanim lift their hands above their heads, so that the Shechina on their fingertips is above their heads. They don't have a problem with a tzitz, because they don't have a tzitz. But the Kohen Gadol, who does wear a tzitz that has Yud Kei Vav Kei on it, he will duchen with his hands shoulder height. That's Tanakama. Everyone has their hands above their heads, except the Kohen Gadol, who has his hands shoulder height. That is in the Beis Hamikdash. Outside the Beis Hamikdash, everyone is shoulder height. Rabbi Yehuda says, no, in the Beis Hamikdash, even the Kohen Gadol can lift his hands above his head, because even though the tzitz is there, we learned that out of the pasuk. Okay, so that is where we're up to today for Tamid. We're now up to the long Mishnah, Mishnah Gimel, which will, Mishnah Gimel, Mishnah Daled, which will start talking about how the parts of the animal were brought up to the Mizbeach. Now remember, we already said that the body parts were brought up to the Mizbeach, and they were. That's the order the Rambam says. They didn't duch until the body parts of the animal, the other things were brought to the top of the Mizbeach. Mi'at Hashem and Yom Rishon will learn why this Mishnah is now going to talk about the animal parts, the flour offering, the Kohen Gadol 6 chalas of the 12. Now the Mishnah is going to start talking about bringing them up to the Mizbeach, and we've already duchen where in fact you can't open until you brought the different body parts to the Mizbeach. We'll take a look at that in Yad Shem on Yom Rishon.